My name is Jerry Gill, and today is October 17th, 2008. I'm visiting with David Treece and the Conoco Phillips OSU Alumni Center on the OSU campus. And this interview is for the O State Stories project of the Oklahoma Oral History Research Program. David, welcome back to campus. And now I understand that this is a special weekend, and tomorrow the appraisal is a special day for the former Pistol Petes.
Yeah, we're looking forward to that.
Now you're, what is this, the parade marshal kind of collectively?
Parade marshal,
Mm-hmm.
yes,
Mm-hmm.
As a collective whole,
Mm-hmm.
with all the old Petes. That's we're just all so excited about this. We are, and
So you're gonna be up there in the float, right in front of the parade. And
we are looking forward to that. And I mean, we're always in there somewhere, 12th, 13th position, but now we get to be the lead dog, I guess.
There's nobody scooping manure.
That's right.
Now.
Well, they say, if you're not the lead dog, you didn't get any better, but so I don't know how we can top this one.
That's great. Well, let's maybe, David, kind of go back a little bit, okay? Tell us a little bit about when the first time, can you recall the first time you remember seeing the Pistol Pete mascot?
Gosh, that has to have been high school.
Mm-hmm.
We came up for a football game. I wish I could remember the year, but
You remember your impression first time you saw Pete?
just phenomenal. I mean, he's such a big character, and everybody wanted a little piece of him, and leading the cheers, and he just had a great time on the field. And so I didn't really think much about it because I wasn't sure exactly when I was going to make it up, because I had to go back to work a little bit before I made it up to college, and I knew the career choice I had, it wasn't going to allow a lot of time for any extracurricular activities. But I just remember thinking that was just such a neat thing to see.
Well, David, tell us a little bit about yourself. I mean, growing up, your family, where you grew up, a little bit about your life.
I grew up, well, my dad was in civil service and part of the military background, so I grew up in Nevada. And of course, the only football team that you saw on TV back then was the Oklahoma Sooners. Well, Dad, anytime he could root for anybody from Oklahoma, he would do that. So basically, that's all I knew growing up as a young kid until we moved back to Oklahoma. And I've always been I always had something orange on it, seemed like growing up. I just kind of gravitated to that color.
Did your parents go to Oklahoma State?
No, they did not.
No, okay.
No, they both right out of college went into military and civil service and all of that. So, but they knew that they wanted their kids to go to school, go to a university. Growing up in Edmond, everybody just assumed that was going to be Central State at the time. And so that's where my folks wanted us to go, was Central State. But, the more and more that we went, the more my brothers started gravitating to Oklahoma State. So all of us kids went to OSU.
Were your brothers older?
I had an older brother.
Did he go to OSU first?
He did, and he graduated in chemical engineering, and I would drive up. I was working, waiting my turn to come up here. So I would come up on the weekends, and my brother and sister-in-law stayed at the married student housing. And so I'd come up after an all-night job at Safeway bread plant. And so I'd get up here about 6 o'clock in the morning and sleep on their couch till game day and start to attend the games with them.
What, can you first think about being Pistol Pete? And when did the idea first to come to you that you might want to be Pistol Pete?
That's an interesting subject. Again, having to work my way through college, my sister got me a job at the Kappa House, being a houseboy. So the first day there, I walked in and I met Rob Reynolds, who was an alternate Pete to Shane LeDuc at the time. And so started, talking with Rob. But Rob and I didn't hit it off at first because I thought, okay, here's this frat boy. I was independent. They were talking about all the frat stuff that they were going on. And Rob started giving me a hard time. So I thought, oh boy, what is this guy's story? And so come to find out he was a Pistol Pete. And Rob and I ultimately ended up being very good friends and did a lot of things together off, when we weren't in classes and all this stuff. We did just tons of stuff. Spring break came along, and Oklahoma State made it to the Big A championship game, and they needed Pistol Pete to go up there. Shane LeDuc already had, he was going skiing up in Colorado, and Rob had some other commitments, and they said, Dave, would you want to do it? I thought, well, I don't know anything about it. He said, oh, well, let me show you how to do, put the garb on. So I went up and...
Were you an alternate Pete or anything at all
No.
this time? No, this a little unusual? I mean,
it was very unusual.
Uh-huh.
I mean, to have both Petes not having the chance to go up there for the
but I
big
mean, normally you go through this tryout system.
Exactly.
There's special things you have to learn about etiquette.
You do.
No, you just, I mean, you put on the uniform.
Well, Rob and Shane spent a little bit of time. Here's what you do. Here's so I had just a quick crash course, and I went up, with the cheerleaders that I didn't know, but a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun, and that was a year.
What year was that?
That was in '83.
83.
I believe that was '83, or was it '82? It's either '82 or '83. I'm not getting foggy. I'm getting too old on that. But Oklahoma State made it to the championship game against Missouri and went into overtime and won the Big A championship game in Kansas City. And so when the program for the basketball came out, the Pete that was on there was me instead of Rob, who was the current Pete, or Shane LeDuc. So here's this newcomer, and so I was able to use that as an experience when I decided to try out.
So you liked it?
I enjoyed it, and of course, with the backing of Rob and Kurt, both of those guys encouraged me to try out. He said,
So then later that spring, then you went through the tryout process.
I did.
And can you remember recall a little bit about the process for trying out for Pete, what you had to do to get to become an official Pete?
I remember there were 3 or 4 former Pistol Petes, and they all are scrutinizing each candidate that comes in, and then Myron Roderick's wife, and from life me I don't remember what her first name was, but she was on the committee, and they asked a lot of interview questions, why and backgrounds and things like that, and then you had to put on the head, and they would give you a situation and you had to act, touchdown or bad call or whatever it may be. And so you really had to work at the exaggeration of emotions, because everything is so much bigger with that, and you really had to go through that and just act out all the situations that they would throw at you right and left, and then new things that you would want to bring in as Pete.
What what were some of the things after you got chosen for Pete? Did you sort of have this sort of etiquette training, if you will? I mean, not a bit. Did they say do's and don'ts and things that you could do and didn't want you to do? There's some I gotchas there.
Well, yes, and the year that I was Pete was the first year that the athletic department took it over. Before it was the student activity piece. So Dave Martin was the one that took it over, and he said, remember, you're representing Oklahoma State. Everything you do reflects on the university. Every action, every outing that you do, you're the ambassador. You're the salesman. You're the marketing guy for Oklahoma State. So they did talk about do's and don'ts. And again, all the little kids are looking at you. All the alumni are looking at you. Students are looking at you. So not that there was a lot of pressure, but they just wanted to remind you that, at some point, every part of that game, somebody is watching.
See, part of that is you don't take your head off in public.
Right.
And
what about, you want to keep that a little bit of mystery. So anytime, and it would get hot at these games, so you would always have to go back into the tunnel, drink your sodas or water or whatever it may be, but you always kept that head on. You always kept the persona of Pistol Pete.
Sort of segue in that, how about, tell us a little bit about your uniform that you wore. Of course, there's the headpiece, but the rest of the outfit as well.
Well, obviously the cowboy boots and jeans. That's the staple right there. But then the leather chaps that Okmulgee Tech made, so part of the OSU family. The shoe boot and saddle. We came out there and they measured all the Petes for the right length. Okay, I'm 5'10", but there's going to be some Petes that are bigger, so they had to make sure that uniform could fit a group of folks. But the chaps and the black vest, white shirt. I think there was a Western store down in Oklahoma City that donated the thing. And you're right, the 357 Magnum gun that we carried, the double barrel shotgun. The noisemakers, as we like to refer to them.
There's some training on those.
We did. Captain Ty was the security guard, and he always made sure that we had the right blanks, and we had to order them through them, and never fired anybody, always up in the air away from everybody, making sure that the fire safety his shoe was well covered. Captain Ty went to a lot of the away games. He was sort of the head of security, and he kept his eye out for us, making sure that we were safe as well, but making sure that we followed all of the safety aspects on the firearms. So I think that's still important today, probably more so today than any other. I think everybody's under the scrutiny of firearm safety. And
what? So, can you share a little bit about some of the activity? For example, how many athletic events would you, in a typical year, you repeat a couple years, or how many would you attend? Just athletic events, and then total events. We'll talk about some of that also.
Well, obviously, all of the sporting events, whether it's baseball, basketball, football, a couple of golf outings when they had the fundraiser, we would attend those, and wrestling events. Whether it was myself or whether it was Rick Wilson, we attended every sporting event. But then you would get requests for parades, birthday parties, weddings, and things like that. So the number of Oklahoma State related were probably well into the hundreds, because you still had, the Alumni Association would want Pistol Pete to escort high school honor students to these banquets, so we would attend a few of those. So it had to have been in the 100 range for university events, but by the time you added everything else, I think I counted close to 350 that year of events that I did.
David, how did you balance your two lives here, your Pete life and your student life? Was that pretty tough for you?
Well, it was funny. When I interviewed and got Pistol Pete, the dean of the School of Architecture, I was the first and only, I think, architecture student to ever be Pete.
Great.
But the dean brought me in and said, "You need to drop out of architecture for this year." And I said, "Why?" He said, "Well, architecture is such a demanding career that I just don't think you can do both." So the professor that I had for my design studio, he said, "All I'm asking you to do is come and give me 100%, not 110, not 105, not 98, 100% of your time when you're in studio, and then you give 100% to your Pistol Pete duties." He said, "We'll work it out."
Do you remember who that was?
George Chamberlain. He passed away a few years back, but he ended up being my favorite professor throughout, just because of the backing that he gave to me during my school years in architecture. And it was tough, but I had my highest GPA that year. And it was all balancing, making sure that you got the homework done, got the design studies done, and still made the demands that Pete has.
So you had a crash course in time management.
It was a very tough crash course, but I enjoyed every year, and again, I just thank Professor Chamberlain for that.
What was the Pete experience what you thought it'd be?
More so.
Afterwards, and when you're looking forward and looking back?
I knew it would be fun. I didn't realize how much fun. Just the people that you would meet. The first game we went to at Arizona State, we were playing a nationally ranked Sun Devil team, and Oklahoma State came in as underdogs. But we had a pretty decent team, and Thurman Thomas and Rusty Hilger and Barry Hanna, who ended up being a game saver for us in the Gator Bowl. But after the game was won, some of the alumni came over and just said, "Wow, we're so happy to see Pistol Pete out here," and all the Spirit Squad, and gave us a little something to go out and have some good times with afterwards. And it was just the whole experience, meeting new people, meeting just families, and the kids. The kids absolutely adore Pete. They all want the picture taken, and of course, if you can give them a little bit of a spent shell afterwards when they come up and talk to you, or autograph picture, I mean, they just, their eyes light up. And I think that's the most important thing that I've cherished, and I have some letters that I'll certainly share with you, but the letters that the kids would write, I think that's the most important thing.
Speaking of memories, do you remember the first time, so we talked about you were at the basketball game, let's say maybe, but after you become official Pete, can you remember your your first time being out on that field, or maybe even in the basketball game too, but was that a special feeling for you that very first time when you're a little bit scared maybe?
I was scared to death, and it was at the Big 8 baseball tournament. And they asked Pete to be there, and not, what do I do, what shouldn't I do? And of course it's in the heat of, late spring, early summer, and down in Oklahoma City. And just watching the fan reaction, making sure that you didn't stand in front of people. Of course they love Pete, but they also want to see our folks play baseball. So you had to really be aware of that. And then of course, with that, you would have, Pete always has an alternate or a second Pete with you, and you need that other person to be your eyes because you really can't see a whole lot. You've got two little holes about this far away from your eyes. You have two holes in the ear that you kind of have to shrug your shoulders to get up so you can look out to see if you're not bumping into anybody. And then the chin has a hole, so those are the only places you can see out. So you still need that other person to help you.
You're talking
maneuver.
You're talking about the little kids. One Pete I talked about, you had to be careful. That you might trip over them because you couldn't see them sometimes.
You're absolutely right. There's a lot of times where you'd have, okay, Pete, you have two kids come up before you. Okay, where are they? You have to kind of look in the chin or kind of look up, and they say, oh, there they are. So then you get down on their level.
Did you find that kids love Pete?
Absolutely. They would come up and give you hugs. I have one little 3-year-old. I got something in the mail from the mother. So my 3-year-old daughter was making some Halloween decorations, and she wanted Pistol Pete to have one. So I got that in the mail, and I have that in my collection of things. So, but they do. They really think the world of Pete. And of course, now I hope that a lot of the kids that I met back then are graduates of Oklahoma State at this point. So,
do you remember the historical Frank Pistol Pete Eaton, the inspirational character for the OSU mascot? What personal characteristics of Frank Eaton did you try to portray, in your on-field activities?
Well, I think a lot of it might have come from he was known as a sharpshooter. Now, of course, with gun safety, but everybody knew that Frank Eaton was a marshal and always gave demonstrations on his firearm and expertise marksmanship here. So you try to set up some things where even though you would aim high, you would act as if you were shooting at somebody, try to act like they were being hit by the Pete, but you still want to make sure that you sort of knew that the gun safety was that.
Work on the Pete swagger.
The Pete swagger, the bow-leggedness of the cowboy and the whole cowboy persona. I mean, everything, you did kind of swagger a little bit and walk bow-legged and the spurs that we would have as well.
David, picking up your comments about portraying Frank Eaton, a real person, did it make a difference for you in terms of knowing that as OSU's mascot, you're actually portraying a historical figure, not a animal or a mythical character or something like other school mascots? Did that make that kind of, the OSU mascot more special for you?
Well, I think so. Again, everybody knew Frank Eaton, Frank Eaton Jr. We had a chance to meet him, one of his sons, and I asked him, so what do you think about the mascot, and know that your dad was the inspiration of that, and he said it's such a touching moment, knowing that that's a legacy being carried down, and so that's what I believe that the Pistol Pete is carrying on that legacy of Frank Eaton, and it is special. I mean, you look at some of the other mascots across the U.S. with an orange ball or whatever, and you thought, well, okay, that might be fun, but this is really portraying an individual and somebody that really means a lot to the history of Oklahoma State.
Picking up on that comment, what do you think Pete represents to OSU, fans and friends in the state of Oklahoma? How does he personify and typify, our values?
Well, I think if you look at anything, the whole persona of a cowboy, hardworking, typically honest. I guess just the character and tradition of the state of Oklahoma. A lot of ranching, a lot of agriculture. Whether that is still true, as far as the agriculture, the persona of a cowboy, I think it still holds true today. There's still a lot of good, solid roots.
The frontier in the American West.
Exactly. And I just think it's just a unique and special character. And I still think that the alumni, I mean, anytime you were Pete, you'd walk by and you were no longer Dave, you were no longer, a student. It was, I was called Pete the entire time. So I think the alumni really, have embraced that character.
You get identified occasionally at an OSU function or something as a former Pistol Pete.
Exactly.
Still to this day.
To this day, this is Dave Treece. Yeah, he was a former Pete. He was Pete when I was going to school. Or a lot of the alumni that or parents of friends that I have, they say, "Yep, former Pistol Pete." "Oh, really? What year?" "Oh, well, I remember this game," and so they'd bring back a memory of that year. And so yeah, I was Pete that game.
What do you think? What does Pete represent to OSU alumni? What does it mean to OSU alumni and fans?
Oh gosh, I mean, that's a good question, Jerry. I mean, I would hope that it's some very positive feelings with the whole tradition of Oklahoma State, and Pete is just one part of that tradition. I'm not sure I have a good answer for you on that one.
That was a good answer. Well, can you share some especially meaningful experiences and memories that you had that stand out as Pete?
There were several. Obviously you kick off with football, and we had a pretty decent team that year. I think we went 10-2. Rusty Hilcher was quarterback, and Thurman Thomas, Barry Hanna, Leslie O'Neill on defense, and we were heading up to Nebraska, and we all thought that was going to be the chance that we would finally beat Nebraska at home. They had just lost to Syracuse, and we were talking earlier. Garth Brooks did a song on Husker Busters, sort of poking fun of the Huskers getting beat by Syracuse. And we walked in, Pete with the boombox, playing that as loud as we could, and the Husker fans really got a kick out of that. The security came up and said, "You are not to fire that shotgun, you're not to fire that pistol, you're going to get kicked out of the stadium." Captain Ty overheard that, and he says, "No," I said, "this is tradition. Pete has to fire the gun. You do what you're supposed to do as mascot." He says, "I'll take care of the rest." I said, "Okay." So the football team came out of the tunnel, and both barrels, boom, boom, as loud as it could. Security guys started just marching over at me as with this stern look. And Captain Ty said, "I gave him permission to do that." I said, "You deal with me, not with him." We ended up losing the game. It was a very close game, but still a lot of fun. And just that memory of, okay, am I going to get kicked out of the stadium by doing something as Pete? So I was a little bit nervous about that. Then the OU game, we came down there. We really thought we could beat OU at their place. It'd been a little while, and kept the game real close. And it's a hostile crowd down there. Bedlam. It just means exactly that.
Did they ever heckle Pete down there?
A little. Well, of course. You're a target. In an away game, you're the representative of the university, and we scored on them a couple times, and I think another close game. Gator Bowl. Those are probably some of the roughest fans. The curse words, the spitting. People throwing things at you as we're going to the Spirit Walk and pep rally, but that game was just fantastic. I mean, that's when everything clicked, and of course, the Barry Hanna touchdown to win that game 20-19, I believe is what the score was. A real close game. So that was a fantastic year. Getting to meet some of the football players afterwards, and even the players get a kick out of Pistol Pete and everything else. Leslie O'Neill, I would see him walking across campus, and he would always yell at me, "Hey Pete, how you doing?" So I wasn't Dave to anybody, I was Pete. And Johnny Washington, big Johnny Washington. So
did you lose some of your self-identity to Pete?
Well, you do. You become that character, for that year. You do everything you can to uphold that tradition as Pete.
How's it to have an alter ego,
Well,
David? I mean,
you can get away with more. Well, Pete did that. That wasn't Dave, So you start talking about Pete as another person.
Okay, well, David, we got to change. You got to ask you now. Be candid now.
Okay.
Your most embarrassing moment or moments as Pete?
I was asked by a ref to get away from the free throw line at an OU game. I was holding up an OU with a big, line through it, and I was holding it up, and the ref asked me twice to move, and he says, "No, if you don't move, I'm going to have to kick you out of the game." So I had to kind of scoot over a little bit. He kept, pushing me back over, and that was on national TV. So that was the.
Now that would have been a highlight to kick Pete out of the game.
Well, I'm sure the booze, and it was at Gallagher Hall. So, I was kind of embarrassed about the ref getting on me, but that was probably the most embarrassing part. I don't think I ever tripped. I don't think I ever did anything too obnoxious.
You ever actually fire off your gun when you weren't supposed to, or?
Well, they did ask us not to fire it off in Lloyd Noble, and I got scolded by the security guy by doing that. But Coach Hansen came up and said, "Thank you." But that's about it. That was the only time. Of course, you go to some places and they just despise the gun because of the noise and everything. I mean, it just kind of shocks everyone. What was that like? Okay, there's Pistol Pete again. But that was the only thing that I can recall. Others may jump in. Oh, Dave, you did this, but I'll blame old age. I can't remember that.
What about your interaction with OSU fans, especially children? You mentioned that earlier. Did you have some heartwarming moments there? Some times you remember?
The Special Olympics. We did a couple of Special Olympic activities here, and those kids were so loving, and you just give them just a little bit of time and attention, and they just enjoy it. I had 2 letters from some Special Olympians that when I wrote the signature, the autograph of Pistol Pete, the parents wrote back and said thanks. So it's up on his wall. And again, the kids, they just love the birthday parties. I mean, the kid was special if they had Pistol Pete come to his birthday party. But even weddings, you'd go to OSU alums. My sister married an OU fan. Showed up at her wedding, and well, it's okay. He plays quarterback now for us, so he's doing all right. But you go to the weddings as Pistol Pete, and dance with the bride, dance with the mother of the bride, and all of that.
Yeah. Dave, there's a connection with our quarterback. Is that correct?
That is true.
You want to share that with us a little bit?
My nephew is a starting quarterback at Oklahoma State University, Zach Robinson.
Zach Robinson.
He's doing okay. He's turned out to be a pretty decent quarterback. Quiet kid. I brought him up with another nephew. I had to take care of some things at the School of Architecture on one of my visits out, and Zach was wearing his OU hat, and my other nephew had his OSU hat. But we walked through Heritage Hall, and then we took him out on Lewis Field, and he looked around and said, "This would be a fun field to play on." And I said, "Yeah, I think it would be, Zach." And so all the recruiting stories went around, and we finally landed him here, and he's solid orange to the bone at this point. Even his dad, who played football at OU, you see him wear a lot of orange.
What did at the time, Dave? What did it mean to you being Pistol Pete? You alluded to some of it. Could you kind of wrap up some of your thoughts about what it meant to be Pistol Pete at the time?
Well, at the time, as a student, it was just a huge honor. Everybody wanted to know who Pistol Pete was, but then when people found out you were Pete, I think a lot of the students just thought that was just a very neat thing, very cool thing to do, and I was very honored to be chosen. It was a tough interview process, a tough competition. The alternate that I had with Rick Wilson, he and I did so much together. He was a great guy to hang with on football outings and to be each other's eyes. And there would be some times where in the middle of a game we would swap who was being Pete, and it was seamless. You didn't know who it was. But it was just a huge honor to be Pete, and it's something that I've held on and am very proud of since graduation, moving on. And
you're kind of getting there, but looking back now, what does having been Pete mean to you?
Oh wow, it's just something that stays with you the rest of your life. I think you meet any former Pete, you just realize how deep the love of Oklahoma State is. It's such a deep-rooted. We all hang around. We're looking forward to this reunion and swapping stories of what we did as Pete. And you just can't take that away from somebody.
David, just a little history. 50. This is the 50th reunion of the first year that Pete was out on field with a head.
The paper mache head.
1958. Okay, the paper mache head. Also, 1958 is the year that Frank Eden died. So it's a two 50-year reunions, if you will.
Right.
It's very, very interesting. But
and a huge honor for us to come back, and a privilege and honor to be the parade marshal and to have all of the celebration with the former Pistol Petes. And some of them aren't with us anymore. So we're going to carry on their legacy as well. And we want to make sure that we don't forget even those first students that portrayed Pete that started this.
You should carry on their legacy. What do you think is the collective legacy of the Pistol Petes through the years?
I think the overall deep spirit that everybody has and the love of the university. You just can't watch a game and not look out for Pete anymore. You just want to make sure that you see him, making sure that student is carrying on those same traditions and honor of that legacy. Again, Frank Eaton was a great character, a great individual, and set the standards for what we as Petes are trying to carry on.
And your legacy, David, how do you want to be remembered as a Pete?
That I did the best I could, that I tried to make things a little fun, that I didn't do anything to tarnish the image of Pete, and hopefully I achieved that.
Well, how has your experience as Pete, how has it influenced your life in some ways?
I think I came out of my shell. I grew up being a very shy and quiet kid. Pete, I think, allowed you to kind of open up some of the quiet, the sort of the hidden tendencies, and this thing like, wow, life can be much more fun by letting some, don't keep your emotions so bottled up. Just let it out and have fun. I've become a little bit more outgoing since Pete, and of course, with the characters that have played Pete, the other Petes that we run around with, they don't let you keep anything in.
Well, are there lessons and disciplines that you learned from your Pete experience that still influence your life today? You talked about the time management, having to do so much together. Other lessons that you learned?
I think just the ability, when you meet somebody, make sure it's an honest handshake, an earnest look somebody in the eye. I mean, even as Pete, I wanted to make sure that I made eye contact them, even behind the mask, and even afterwards, whatever you did. If somebody knew that you were Pete, you just want to make sure that you met an honest handshake.
What would you tell a young student? I mean, say an OSU student or a young person who's thinking about being Pete. What would you tell them?
Go for it. Go for it. It would be the most fun you would have in that school year. The opportunities that you get a chance to participate in, the people you meet. I try to encourage anybody to say, well, I'm thinking of going for Pete. Well, don't think about it, do it. It's something you will never regret. It's something you will hang on to for the rest of your life. It is an honor and a great tradition to portray Pete. And all guns out, just go for it.
And looking back, and you had to do all over again what you did?
Absolutely. In a heartbeat, no second thoughts. Maybe even try a few more things, I wish I'd have done that, but no doubts at all. No second thoughts. I'd do it in a heartbeat.
Maybe kind of change the direction just a little bit, maybe a couple kinds of questions. One about your other life at OSU, what are some of the other activities, leadership opportunities, things you're engaged in when you're here at OSU?
It was interesting, and again, with the School of Architecture, that program is such an in-depth and tough. I didn't have a whole lot of time to do anything else. You were up all night doing your design work and studies, and the professors put a lot of heat on you. If you were doing this, then you weren't serious about architecture. And the year that I was Pete, again, they had second thoughts. Well, what's your true dedication to architecture? So your life as a student was architecture. Now, I was a houseboy at for a sorority, and that was a lot of fun. Got a chance to meet other folks outside of the studio, outside of the life of architecture.
Did you meet your wife here?
I did not. I met my wife when I went to Baltimore, and she was working at the architectural firm that I went to work for.
Well, pick up here. So you left OSU. Kind of tell us a little bit about your career, since then.
I had first accepted a job in Dallas. I thought that'd be a great place because you can make it home for football games on the weekend, going down to Dallas. But the economy was hitting pretty tough, and so I went out to Baltimore to interview for a few jobs. And about the only times I could make it back were homecoming games. So I ended up being a 1-year visitor to Oklahoma State during those times. But architecture is a great field. We always try to interview Oklahoma State folks when they make it back out here. I still keep in contact with Randy Seitsinger now, who's the dean, and try to bring out some OSU folks to our area. But it was very tough. Not having gone to just about every football game in my entire college career here, and before when I went up with my brother, all of a sudden having that streak ended. It was a big withdrawal. We now have the package where we can watch the Oklahoma State on TV, whether it's basketball, football, and sometimes you'll get a wrestling match. Not very often, but once in a while you'll catch a wrestling match on TV. And so anytime Oklahoma State's on one of the programs, I watch it.
Well, speaking of the different sports, did you have a favorite sport as Pete? I mean, you talked a lot about football, so I assume there must have been did some of the other events you really enjoyed?
I was a huge wrestling fan and watched Johnny Smith a little bit. And when he came out and won his NCAA when they were wrestling at Maryland, we had a chance to meet him out there. So I've always been a wrestling fan, and that's a sport that we've just dominated and still continue to do so. So that was probably my favorite sport, but not very many people understand or watch wrestling unless you're from the state of Oklahoma or Iowa or something like that. So, but as a student, I never missed a wrestling match. Basketball, we kind of struggled a little bit. We didn't have very many great teams at that point, other than the one that went to the Big Eight. But Matt Clark and Lorenzo Andrews, Barry Half-Court Hanna, that was some fun times to watch.
What? So you took the job at Baltimore in the same position? You stayed with the same firm there?
No,
still in Baltimore?
I started with a very small firm and then went to a national design firm. And since then I have changed twice. I'm with a firm based out of Buffalo, New York, but there's offices nationally and internationally. So healthcare architect, I do primarily healthcare architecture. More of a specialized field.
Health facilities, design
Hospitals, clinics, medical office buildings.
Great. What? So you're excited about being back for the weekend?
I am.
And with the Petes and.
I was just talking to another Pete. I said, yesterday I said it's Thursday. I'm flying out tonight. I feel like I'm waiting for Santa Claus. Christmas all over again, and especially this weekend. But homecoming is always a fun event to come back. And of course, the game day spirit, is completely different than the way it was back in '84. But just watching all of those new traditions and the tailgates and the spirit walk and everything else that the university has incorporated, it just makes this weekend just fantastic.
Does it make you proud that Oklahoma State University has that kind of homecoming?
Oh, without a doubt, without a doubt. And we always encouraged, I would take out little ads, for Pete's sake, wear orange at the game. Well, it wasn't until later on where it really, caught on, and you walk in and you see the sea of orange in the stadium. Some schools have the black out or the white out. Well, we always have an orange out every game, and that's neat to see.
David, you had a chance as Pete to probably more than most people to feel that sense of loyalty and pride that OSU alumni have. What is it that makes OSU alumni so loyal, do you think, and so proud of the university?
I think it's maybe part of the struggles of, we're as a football team, we're always considered a second tier in some eyes, not in the alumni. We're there. we know that we're a little better. We know we're a lot better. I just think with OSU fans, they're not a bandwagon fan. That if you're an OSU fan, it's a lifelong ordeal for you. We embrace the team, we embrace the school, we embrace the university, the whole tradition of Oklahoma State. You're not one who says, well, the football team may be down this year, so I'm no longer going to wear orange. That's not the case. If anything, you become a little bit more tighter-knit group, help each other out in the highs and the lows, and we've been through a lot.
Well put. David, anything else that you want to mention, share your experiences, anything we've left out, or just about OSU or Pete or whatever?
I do think it's important to know that when the athletic department took over helping Pistol Pete and the Spirit Group with its processes throughout the year, I think that was a huge advantage that the Spirit Groups got with the dedication from the athletic department. I think it gets the spirit, it gets the legacy, it gets a lot of the name brand out a little bit more with that. And, all the Petes that were before me that were under the Student Activity Center, kind of had to beg, borrow, and hitch rides up to a game. And now the athletic department has just really taken it over and done a bang-up job.
Right.
And, I also just really appreciative of what you're doing with this and making sure that the Pete legacy is continuing on, making this whole weekend even a more special event for all of us old guys coming back and trying to relive our youth.
We'll welcome you back to the 50th Pistol Pete reunion.
We're looking forward. It's going to be a cram-packed weekend.
Thank you. Appreciate it.